We here live. It's been a while. It's not gonna take us too much time to get into it, but we're here.
We're
Shouts
gonna
out,
get into it.
Community Beacon. Mike Seville here, and with my cohort from the Tenacity Foundation, the Joel Simmons. I'm
What's going
excited,
on?
man. Uh,
Yes, sir.
Everything is going on. Everything and nothing at the same time. What is not going on? But what we will get to be going on is this topic as we go into this new series. Last since January about two. Oh my God, about 2 to 3 months, we focused on love. So if a lot of you
Mm.
didn't get any clarity, any understanding, any relation out of those in-depth conversations that we had over 2 months in regards to love, I suggest that you take the time to go back, check out the series, see how we put our spin on it, some of the thoughts that we had surrounding it. The brother and I were on the live. We met last week, right? Yeah, I think it was last week Thursday, and we kind of went back and forth in regards to that. We really should have taped like those conversations. We should have probably taped. We always say that.
Behind the
However,
scenes.
we do need to document a lot of those conversations because we really get in depth in those conversations as well. As always, we're definitely thinking men, and we really like to remove some of the and gain clarity, not remove, but gain clarity and build on what it is that we know and the information that we have. And this series is not going to be any different. I'm gonna start off just real quick. People, if I start talking about weights and nutrition, so on and so forth, it's because I'm about 6 to 7 weeks into this adjustment that I'm doing and going down that way. So a lot of the concepts, a lot of the thoughts, is really in depth in that. I know last year I did my court thing, so I was really attuned to that. And so now I'm in that space where there's a lot of nutrition, a lot of lifestyle, so on and so forth. But I'll definitely find a way to relate it to what it is that we're talking about. In this case, we're going to be talking about habits for about a month or so, and we can jump right into it, brother, because I know we're a little pressed for time here, or
It's
we're
all
aware of
right.
the
Come
time.
on. Yeah, we're gonna get what we're gonna get. It's gonna be all
Yeah.
right. I'm just glad to be here with you, and it's gonna be nice. So let's go. Let's roll.
Awesome. So we're jumping into awareness and ownership. I think really how we started talking about this last week. I kind of brought up the subject was when I started thinking about habits and how we get to where we get to. To me personally, it's a commitment to something, right? So it's like I'm committed to something, and these habits, what I call habits, how I define it personally, is that it's like automated responses, things that we do without even somewhat thinking about it. Like we kind of, at some point in time, we've made a decision or what I call a commitment. We've committed, we signed a contract with ourselves that we're going to react into a certain kind of way. We're going to do it. And it happens repetitively to the point where it's subconscious. Or we get it's something that we want to do, right? Like I'm gonna go into the food because this was a huge thing. And as I'm going through this process, understanding really the relationship that I have with food and things that I was calling cravings weren't really cravings, they were habits. I was in the habit of when I passed by the kitchen, opening up the refrigerator door. I was in the habit of, oh, there's some macadamia nuts, grab a handful. So it wasn't like I was craving the macadamia nuts. It wasn't something that was biologically pushing me towards it. It was something mentally that I had already committed to however long ago, whenever it was, that Mike can't pass by a bag of macadamia nuts without grabbing a handful of them. What do you think, bro?
Man, I like that. I like that you kept it real simple as far as it goes. When we started getting into this thing about habits, uh, it just made me think about a few different things. I mean, when you started talking about like the macadamia nuts and then how you can't walk past the macadamia nuts without picking some up, that reminds me of triggers or certain, something that causes you to respond. and it becomes instinctual. So whenever you see macadamia nuts, it's like, all right, that means I'm supposed to eat. And I think that that happens with a lot of different things that we're doing inside of our lives, and we don't even realize it. So I believe that, these are developing habits, and these habits we are non-intentional. There's a chance that we were intentional in the very beginning, like if you intentionally want to drink water, so every single day you wake up, you go to the fridge, you drink a bottle of water, and so now whenever you go by the fridge, you want to grab a bottle of water, whether you're thirsty or not. That could be a habit that you started intentionally, but it became a habit unintentionally. I think that these I think that understanding this is what gives us the power,
Hmm.
habit formation, to be able to use it for our best ability. And I think that's where we need to be at. It's like, how do I use habit forming to make my life better? And when we start thinking about it like that, now it takes intentionality. I need to know what I'm doing when I'm doing what I'm doing. When I start thinking like that, though, Mike, I realize something inside of my own self is that creating habits sometimes can be more difficult when I'm creating them intentionally than it is when they're unintentional. It's like when I go to, if I want to sit down and watch a movie, which I don't do this, and but at a certain point in time, I did. Whenever I watched a movie, I had to have popcorn, right? Whenever And then when I went home and started watching movies at home instead of going out to the movie theaters, I haven't been to the movie theaters in, I don't know, a decade or 2. But when I started watching movies at home, then I always wanted the lights to go off. So it's just automatic. I didn't have to think about those things. When it came down time for me to create a new lifestyle, as far as the way that I was working out, as far as the way that I was waking up, as far as the way that I was reading books, okay, now I'm pressing against something that my body does not naturally want to do. So intentionality, I have to override my system, override my own body's thought process. And I have to tell my body, all right, we're not doing what we used to do. We're going to do what I want to do. And I think that this is where I believe I had to discipline myself. I had to check myself, tell myself, listen, you're going to do this whether you like it or not because I say I like it. And it's like this conversation between me and my own body. Like my body is telling me, nah, we're not doing that. I'm tired. It's early. I don't, all whatever it is. I can't read. Every time I read, I fall asleep. And I'm telling my mind, no, you're going to stay awake. If I have to prop my eyes open with toothpicks, or if I have to drink, you know, 24 ounces of coffee, whatever it takes, I'm going to make this adjustment. When the adjustment was made after X amount of times, I know that there's a thought process of 3 months, 90 days. Habits become uh, more concrete with the inside of your life, and they become lifestyle changes. But I believe that you have to still take that further than that, because it becomes something that your body develops or your body needs or wants. But it's easy to fall off that wagon, so to speak, and you go a week or 2 weeks without hitting the gym, and next thing you know, you put them 3 months in, and you are 3 months out now, and it's just like that, you know. So I want to get more into like the mental aspect of it, but that's my answer to this piece that you were just talking about with the macadamians and everything, because I think that there needs to be an understanding that there's it's almost like there's two different pathways of developing habits. There's the intentional pathway and there's the non-intentional pathway. And when you're non-intentionally developing habits, they seem to develop so much easier. But when you are intentionally developing habits, you may have to put some work into it if you want to get the results that you're desiring.
I love it. And when we talk about non-intentional, and once again, guys, forgive me, I'm going to bring up food and nutrition. This might be for the next 6 weeks. There's going to be a lot of this, but it just makes it so simple to me. It makes it tangible. there's certain foods that we eat that there's scientists in the lab that are actually creating them to make you want them, to make you crave them. So when we start talking about habit forming initially, a lot of these habits are being formed when we say unintentionally is it could be environmental, it could be cultural, right? You see people doing it, and this is just the way it's always been done. So now, as we start to become adults, or we start to become thinking men, well, what do? We break it down. How productive are we with whatever's going on? How constructive are these habits? Like, how is it constructive in the direction and alignment with where I want to go? And then ultimately, it's the effectiveness of it. How effective are we performing? Are these things that we're performing automatically? Because as humans, that's what we seek to do. We seek to, because it would be taxing to up mentally for us to always have to remember to do this, that, and the third, right? It's just you want to automatically as humans, we start to develop ways of seeing patterns in things, and then we start to automatically associate it. Hence walking past, I see these macadamia nuts. It just automatically grab them. Your body needs to be nourished. That's what my mind. That's what it's automatically happening. But then when you go back to assess, you're saying, okay, well, how productive is it for me to continuously think of the macadamia nuts in this way? How constructive is it if I'm, wanting to lose body fat or weight or whatever it is? And is it effective? Is the food coming from these macadamia nuts effective in my long-term goal of whatever it was I decided to do? As the brother stated before, I'm talking about food, but you can use this in almost every area of your life. And this is going to help as we start to reflect and we start to move forward on. And I like to reverse engineer things by saying, okay, what is the goal? Like, where do I want to go? I want to lose body fat percentage. Okay, great. What am I doing now? Right? What am I doing now? So we found the goal. What am I doing now? This is just your roadmap. I'm doing this. Okay, and then I can go back and look at each and one of these different things because it's so easy to gauge the food. How productive is this? How constructive is this? If I'm lifting weights or how much I'm doing, and then is it effective? And then we can, in effectiveness, you can always be more effective, but we kind of want to find that sweet spot. The brother mentioned discipline as well, which I agree. Initially, 1000%, when you start to do something for the first time, it's, the brother was saying about getting tired when you're reading the book. If you're not used to reading the book or whatever it is that you're not used to doing, it's easy for your body to say, well, I'm tired, I need sleep, I need so on and so forth. And then you kind of have to look at yourself and say, well, that's not necessarily the case. If you kind of look back the day before, well, I did get my 6 to 8 hours, that's what I'm used to having. I did eat properly the day before. There's no reason that I need to be tired. However, we find ways to rationalize, to make, these are the, quote unquote excuses that we make to say that we can't do this because of X, X, and O. And then if that's the case as well, there's adjustments that can be made as well. That, I think that leads into that ownership part, starting to take ownership of these different things. Going to Getting a little fuzzy, bro.
Mm. Yeah, I think my connection is a little bit low. You don't see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can go ahead. It's just a little fuzzy, but you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I mean, 100% agreement, and I know we're getting ready to go into like the ownership. I want to double back and just talk about this thing. I want to use this word or this terminology for people to keep in their back pocket, and that's just called mental loops. So it's like neurologically, when we're forming habits, they're basically mental loops. That's what's going on. The brain is creating an autopilot, neurological pathways. And so when your brain starts to create these pathways, it makes it easier for your brain to be able to function. And so that's what's happening. Your brain wants to figure out the easiest way to function. Why? Because it's all about preserving energy. It's all about having in store whatever it needs to be able to do the next task. So the brain is always trying to shortcut itself so that it can be able to provide the appropriate amount of energy to the rest of the body, right? So it's the same way. Like if you If you have a job, you go to work, you take a certain pathway. Before you know it, one day you're thinking about something and you just drive home. And the only thing you remember is getting in the car, passing the first light, and then arriving at your destination, arriving at home. And what was that? Well, that was because the habit has been formed and your brain went on autopilot, and it freed up the space for you to be able to use your brain for something else, something completely different. That's true multitasking. When you're able to actually free up space and not know that you're doing exactly what you desire to do while you are focusing on something else. That is true multitasking. The rest of that stuff is just switching from one task to the
Uh-huh.
next. And that doesn't serve the right purpose, especially when you're in the middle of a conversation or something else where you need to be focusing on whatever the situation is. So habit forming is a way of actually and truly multitasking, but you have to create a habit that is so deeply rooted within inside yourself that it becomes instinctual, that you absolutely just do it simply because your body knows this is what I'm supposed to do and this is the time that I'm supposed to do it, and now it's not taking me any external effort. I think that's a huge thing to just think about, is when it does not take any real effort. For instance, if you have a bad habit of, eating the wrong foods and you find yourself in the refrigerator snacking at 2 o'clock at night on pizza, and you didn't even realize that you were there. You might have a bad habit. Maybe you don't want that. Right. So anyway, I know we're moving into ownership. So this is the thought process, and I'm just going to open up the conversation with this right here. Like, ownership is us actually stating, okay, I just recognize I have this habit. That's the ownership. You're not blaming anybody. It's not like, oh my gosh, my wife, she left pizza inside the refrigerator. If she hadn't left the pizza there, then at 2 o'clock in the morning when I woke up to use the restroom, I wouldn't have went downstairs and got me a slice of pizza because I'm hungry. No, it doesn't work that way, right? So now maybe I'm hungry and I went down there, but if I find that, but it's not because of somebody else. When we take ownership, we take authority over our own life, and what you need to be able to take ownership is self-awareness. You have to have a certain level of self-awareness to be able to take ownership. Like, I take ownership. I take ownership over my life. I take ownership over what's going on. Just recently, over the last few days, I was going through my own mind, and I'm thinking about what's happening. I'm processing things. A lot of times when I'm processing things, I will let somebody else know. In the gathering, I sent out a message. I put out the message for everybody because I wanted them to understand, this is what's going on. I'll read it to you guys real quick. It won't take that long, but I'll just read it just so you can kind of get a feel for what I mean by this. All right. So this is what I wrote. Fellas, sending love out to all of the dedicated men of the gathering. As I spoke with my pastor a few nights ago to inform him of why I missed service, he consoled me. As I well, I as well as many of you have been pressed to do. Stress is high, and the desire to complete and accomplish is real. We are all faced with challenges and adversity. Truly, these challenges will make us stronger if we allow God to navigate the path and direct our footsteps. That can be a challenge all in its own. Many times we choose our next move based on what we think is right without godly consideration or consultation. As I am very happy and proud to be in this group with each of you and work on various projects and commitments with some of you, I am reminded that even Jesus went to the mountain to pray alone sometimes, and that Paul said, forsake not the assembly. My prayer is that we all press boldly to the mountain or altar, especially for healing and strength, that we not forsake the fellowship with each other and with God. And lastly, that we take time to breathe. Everything doesn't have to be done now or by us. Be blessed with sincerity. What was the thought process behind that? My thought process behind that was that, okay, I'm starting to recognize that I'm not acting normal. I had watched 3 movies, 3 of them in a week. 3 movies in 1 week. I saw 2 movies in one day. I'm talking about I recognize I am not myself. These are this is old man Joel is just like popping up, popping up. What is going on? And I began to tell people that I trust and people that I love. I'm like, all right, I know that the stress is high and that I'm starting to deal with it with my old style of life. And I need to break away from that. So I need to rest. I need to get to the beach, right? I need to go work out and I need to just allow things to be. And I began to take ownership of all these things that I was doing that was causing me to like go backwards. And I began to apply all of my different intentional actions, the actions that got me to where I am. And I snapped out of it. And I was just able to just turn that corner. So habits can be fleeting in some cases. In my case, I saw the opportunity for the habits that I had developed to disappear. But because I took ownership of my life, I was able to re navigate, pivot, and I was able to continue to move forward in the same direction that I desired to go, which allowed me to hold on to those habits that I have built. As a matter of fact, Mike, I turned around, man, and I ended up starting to wake up at 2:30. Like I just went deeper, not because I needed to wake up at 2:30, but it was because I realized, all right, in order for me to do these things that I need to do that makes me aligned with myself, congruent with my own message to myself, my own narrative, I'm going to need to do this. So I went to sleep earlier and I woke up earlier and I took the time to do every single thing that I needed to do to make me feel like I am who I am. But that's just all I needed to do. I just needed to be me. That's it. I didn't want to be old Joe because that ain't me. And it felt strange. Anyway, go ahead, man.
Just go ahead. Some of the so let me unpack that just a little bit. Some of the things and it resonated, and we talk about this all the time. So it's so important for us to really get this foundation of really knowing, getting to know and understand oneself, and being in a and then becoming in alignment with oneself and be able to check oneself, right? Because once you start to know that, you start to go off path. But this almost as what Joel, even what you just kind of described, is almost like an advanced class. So I would advise people to kind of like go back and listen to that and kind of just kind of break it down. One thing that I loved about it was being able to reach out. A part of taking ownership is you kind of just told everybody, right? Like you, this is being transparent. And I think it was TD Jakes. I heard him say it one time, and I thought it was an interesting quote that he mentioned. And he was like, once you start to, he says the enemy, whatever you want the enemy to be, will keep you quiet, like wanting you not to kind of to be transparent, not letting people know what exactly is going on. And you've developed and curated, Joel, a supportive system, a support system. So it's interesting when we start to go back into what you described as the old Joel, those old Joel habits, excuse me. um and it's like you, but immediately recognizing it and then saying, you know what, I'm just letting everybody know, listen, this is not, I'm going down this pathway, and this is not where I want to be. Because I'm doing these things, and I just want to be, which I think is very important. Has nothing to do. The brother spoke about getting up at 2:30 and going to bed early. That these are habits that are interesting, and we want to form, but it has nothing to do with that. It's really just about being and putting yourself in the best environment to be. Just speaking on the 2:30 o'clock, waking up early in the morning, people, I'm telling you, if you can get up and get those first couple of hours to yourself, 1 or 2 hours to yourself, and really just, do something. As far, you could go for a walk, meditate or something, in just this quietness. I think it helps out a lot. Really, just you getting to know yourself and being and just being in that environment. Most oftentimes for most of us, the phone is not going off. If you have kids, the kids aren't up yet, your wife's not up yet, you get a chance to be. And if you want to watch a movie, you could watch it then. But I guarantee if you get up, you'll probably want to do something else. So getting to know oneself is super important. The accountability part. I'm gonna tell you a verse that just been ringing in my head for the past week or so, and it had and I'm actually in Leviticus, but this came from Genesis 3:12. It said, "Lord, the woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it." And when I was thinking about it, it's like I'm just giving up all accountability. Like, listen, you spoke about the pizza, so that's why it sparked in my mind again. It was just like the pizza was down there, and I ate it. It wasn't my fault, it they bought that pizza last night, and I got through not eating the pizza last night, and now I'm up in the morning, and I really the pizza woke me up in the middle of the night, and I just had to go down there to eat it, and it's your fault too, because if you guys would eat like I ate, sometimes a lot of these different things and especially habits, so on and so forth, us being the lead, like this is real manhood stuff right here. Us being the leader, we have to do for become start to become more intentional about our habits, about these different things. That way we can show as a testimony, or what I call a demonstration. You can start to demonstrate these different things. A lot of these habits, when we talk, and I'm going to go back to it, were given to us unintentionally. They were cultural. They were in our environment. We saw people doing it, and back then that may have been the thing to do. But as we become Renaissance men, as we start to become thinking men, as we want to be more effective with our leadership, we want to be productive. We want to become more in alignment because we have all this information, which is cool. But what's better than information is the wisdom. So we're gaining this wisdom through these experiences, and we're making these adjustments, and we're noticing. Anybody who's paying attention to us right now or listening to us is probably noticing something. Otherwise, you wouldn't listen to us. You say those two is just, they're just up there just talking. But the reason why you tuned in is because you're noticing something about yourself. And as we go through this habit series, we're going to start talking about things of how to start to replace habits. You don't just get rid of them, right? Like, and you'll notice that a lot. Some of the most people who we look up to and we say, well, this guy is very productive. He's successful in a certain kind of way. You'll notice that he possibly had a habit before, he or she, and now they're replacing it. Some people replace it with business, which can be just as destructive, right? So we want to be cognizant of what exactly it is going on with these habits, how we're replacing these habits, because space abhors a vacuum.
Mm.
So you're gonna fit. Your mind is gonna figure out a way. If Mike is not eating those macadamia nuts, he might be doing something else. And hopefully, if we're not intentional, we're just hoping. We're throwing something against the wall, hoping that it sticks. That it's productive and it's a positive. It's in the direction we want to go. But that's
Mm.
because we're not noticing that we just gave it. You don't just give up anything. You replace it. Figure out what you're replacing it with, and then you can, or not, excuse me, be intentional about what you're replacing it with. That way you can start to be in this productive and constructive, and later on, like I said, effective, right? You can always be more effective, but you want to be productive and you want to be constructive, and it needs to be guided in alignment with whatever the goals that are that you have.
I love it. I love it. And this is a part of the ownership piece, right? Because we're all at different levels within this. Some people may be, where I was, a few years back, where I didn't necessarily take complete ownership, of whatever it was. I had an excuse. Years back, I was excuse driven, and I thought that I wasn't. That's the kicker, because I had gotten to a place where I felt like all excuses are lies. That was the narrative that I had learned from Daddy Grace. All excuses are lies. So I attempted to keep that. What I didn't realize was that when it got really, really tight and when it was really, really on the line, especially like maybe it feels just between me and my wife or something, and who's right and who's wrong, I don't know if I want to be accountable. No, I just want her to be wrong. That's it. And so, so it's almost like I'm just choosing that. That might not be the best example, but that was part of the reality that there was, same thing at work. I just, I can't be wrong. I need to be right in these circumstances. So when it really, really mattered to me, where I felt as if, the way that I was showing up was going to be affected, then I allowed for the excuse to show up. And so, like, that happens with us when we were children. Maybe not all of us, but most children, it's the old cliche verbiage: where's your homework? The dog ate my homework. And it's like, did he really eat your homework, or did you just not do it? Right. And it's like, at a fifth grade level, could you imagine if a fifth grader were to come in and say, listen, I didn't plan my time well, and that's the reason why I was unable to accomplish the assignment. I apologize. I'd like to, if you give me more time, I'll make sure that I get it done, because I want to plan my time out right now, and I'll have it back to you tomorrow. You know, I, just taking accountability changes everything. It also, when you take accountability, see, what you end up doing is you take agency, you become the agent, you become the power, you become the power. And that's what I had to learn when I became accountable. And I believe that I'm a pretty accountable individual. I'm not going to give myself 100%. I'll say I'm like high 90s. I'm accountable. And then even when I'm not accountable, then I become accountable to myself, because I realize I was not accountable. So then I become accountable, and I go back and I make adjustments, and then I think about it. Anyway, you become the agency. You become the power. The power is within you. What does that mean? That means that whenever you recognize that you have the ownership over your life, over what you say, over your actions, and you are accountable, and you're not allowing excuses to get a free in, it means that when you allow somebody else to say something, to do something, and you react, not respond, but you react based off of previous emotions, feelings, old ways, old habits, and you don't recognize that you have given your power away. You've given somebody else agency over you. And we don't want to be we don't want to be that type of man. We don't want to be that. We don't want to be that. We don't want to be the type of man where anybody can just come and push a button, call you up on the telephone and say certain words, and you're triggered. And because you're triggered, you automatically do something. We don't want to be that. If anything, cue up your own music, you know, but don't let somebody else trigger you into dancing the dance that they want to see. And that's having full agency over yourself. In order to get here, I believe we have to insert a term, growth minded. We have to become growth minded individuals. We have to understand that mistakes will happen, that we may not be the best at what we're attempting to do, but as long as we continue to live our life as if we are, and be exactly what we desire to be to the best of our ability, giving ourselves grace, give yourself grace, allow yourself, understand that you may not make it the first time, but that you can recognize it. You can then break it down, and you can build it back up. You become the agency. It's you are the power. And even if you've made a mistake, or even if you were not accountable, by coming back and becoming accountable afterwards, you have made a milestone movement inside of your life. And you're on your way to being exactly what you desire to be. And the day you become it, you might not even know it because
Mm,
it'll just happen. You're just
yeah,
gonna walk
just
right into
mm,
it.
that's it. Absolutely. Uh, I loved it, brother. And what you said, people won't push your buttons. I want to let people know that has nothing to do with, like, becoming having aggression, right? But because there's no, I don't believe there's anything wrong with aggression, but you want it to be calculated. You don't just want somebody to say your mama and then it's fight, like we got to fight right now, and somebody got to go kind of deal, right? And that, remember, that used to happen back in the day. If they
Oh yeah.
said your mom, if somebody said your mama, it was like, we got to get to it, right? Or called you a certain words, you're like, we got to get to it, because that was the button that they pushed. And we're not knowing that they were siphoning you into putting you into a corner of exactly where you wanted to go. Now, what happens if you respond differently? I think it was interesting. My father spoke about when he was in grade school. Who knows what grade he was in? And he spoke about this one guy. He was the president of the class, and he had a vice president, and he said the vice president guy just didn't like him. My father's a very likable person, very popular, so he was able to. So he's going about doing his presidential duties, and the guy just he says the guy just didn't like me. He said until one day the guy did something to him that made it. He said, "Man, I just went up to him, I just punched him in the face." You know what I mean? And he said, he said the guy he said then they kicked him out of school. They took him. He wasn't president anymore. And the guy who he hit ended up becoming the president. And then as we were calling this conversation, he was like, "Oh, so I guess he got what he wanted, anyways, right?" So it was like this guy put him and knew how to push his buttons, his proverbial buttons, put him in a position to where he lashed out, because that was his habit of doing. And all of a sudden, this guy ended up getting to the spot. Oh man, this is interesting because people don't understand, like, the chess, like the moves that are going on around us. Like, we're so sometimes, and I used to be in this position where I was just so quick to just act because this is just the way that might goes. But then you started seeing how people were intentionally pushing your button, like intentionally, so that you could react in a certain kind of way. Um,
Mm.
last story. I was like the angry black guy at the city. That's what they would call me, right? Like that. Apparently, that's what it seemed like. And I can never forget when we were all in this meeting. The director was there. My immediate supervisor was there. I want to say that we had union people there. There was like four of us, and we're sitting there. We're just like, you know, whatever was going on. And I remember the director. She said something, and she said, "You do the way that you should be treating this immediate supervisor." No, she said, "Do you have respect for your mother?" That's what she said. And she was like, "The way that you should treat this supervisor with the same respect as your mother." And it was just like, it just clicked right there. I was like, "Is this like a your mama thing?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what it was. I said, "Oh,
Took you
she's
back, huh?
right." But it was the awareness of it. This person actually doing this, because she's like, "This is gonna get a rise out of Michael." Like, how I'm supposed to react is I'm supposed to be very upset. Who you talking to? That's what she wanted to happen. And it was just like, I stopped and I looked at everybody in the room, and I said, and I think I said something like, that doesn't even make any sense, what you just said. And everybody looked at me like, I was like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I treat her like she treats my mother. I'm treating somebody like I treat my mother, the person who raised me and took care of me. Like, it doesn't make sense. And everybody was like, it doesn't make sense. But it was just the fact that you start to catch these things. Now, this is an extreme version because this is happening all the time. People are actually pushing buttons, and especially once you get to a certain level, there's a, like, I'm gonna see what I'm gonna get this guy to do. So you're hearing people call you the N word just off of your habit. I'm supposed to respond to the N word, are you? Or react? Excuse me, not respond. I'm supposed to react to this N word, are you? Is this the time or place for it? Once again, going back, are these things productive? Our habits, are they constructive? And how effective are they? You get to go into that. The brother said, if you start to fix these, listen, you may not be the best, but you're going to be in the top 2%, 1%. in life because most people establish these different habits and they just let them happen. And they don't know where it's coming from or how it's coming from. They may be aware of it, but hey, it is what it is. Right? Like, so once you start to, you're going to be in the top 2%. I'm taking it back to nutrition. We just eat whatever. Like when you start to, and this is what they talk about, that your relationship with food. Well, what is this about? I'm celebrating. I gotta eat. Somebody
Mm.
passed away. I gotta eat. I'm highly stressed. I gotta eat. Let me just go get this pizza. This I gotta eat. Oh, you're not even hungry. I gotta eat. You're thirsty. Oh, I gotta eat something. I gotta eat this. I gotta find the first thing that I can grab. Oh, this is just the easier thing. I started cooking a lot more in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And what I started noticing, I was just like, this is not this is not bad. I was just in the habit of not cooking. I was just in the habit of doing the easiest things, right? So it's like now, once you start to recognize these things, okay, it's easier. It's more satiating. I don't. It might be about the same price as buying now when you go to the supermarket and eating out, but it's effective. So check that out. And I gave this arbitrary number. I love giving these numbers because this starts to be a commitment for myself. Is by the 13th time I do something, I'm going to be pretty good at it because I'm going to be doing it 13 times intentionally. That's what I told Elijah. I said, well, he said, Dad, can you edge me up? I said, listen, the first couple are going to be iffy, right? The first couple times are going to be iffy. Shout out Eno. Uh, the first couple of times gonna be easy. I said, but Elijah, by that 13th time, you're gonna have the perfect edge up. But that first to fifth time, they might make fun of you at school, but I'll try to take it easy on you. He's like, oh, okay. So it's like by the 13th time, because what we know, and this is through neuroscience, the brother was talking about developing a habit, is that we know that it's not actually the length of time, it's the repetition. And most people really form habits between I think he said the 27th and the 60th time. Who knows, right? So you might as well go to the 60th. But you start to form that habit. And so it's not, oh, I need to do this every day. It's how many times am I going to do this? So the more times that you do something, the more times it's going to be effective and become a habit. Mine's is 13. So I'm just telling people right now, by the time I do it 13 times, I pretty much got it because I'm paying attention to the form, the function, so on and so forth. But I think this series is going to be an awesome series. We're going to get a chance to, and this is what I advise you to do as we move forward, as we go into this series, going into it. Let's be intentional about it. Let's not just watch Joel and Mike as a habit. Like there's nothing else to do. Let's put Joel and Mike, they spit some stuff, and then we're like, that was interesting, and we let it go. Let's start to form this habit. What we'll do is we'll go start to, between now and the next episode that we have, start to go back and look at some of your habits, whatever it is, right? And don't judge yourself on it. The brother spoke about that earlier. This is not about it's wrong, it's right, it's whatever. All we're saying is these are our habits. And then later we'll start to say, is it productive? Is it constructive? And then we'll put metrics to it. Does this make sense? Right? How is this getting me to the goal? And we're going to be here. Like time is going on. Wouldn't it be great if we just got 1%? This is the 1% they're talking about getting better.
There you go.
This is the 1% because a lot of these things they could happen overnight with discipline. But the brother brought up these triggers and going back to these macadamia nuts, the trigger of me leaving the kitchen empty-handed was interesting. I had to sit in that for a while. Like going into the kitchen, seeing the macadamia nuts sitting there, and I'm like, I'm not gonna grab it. And then I go back and I sit in the couch. And I was like, why did I grab? What is this feeling that I'm having because I didn't grab these macadamia nuts? And then maybe the next time I go, I'm gonna grab them and I'm gonna judge that feeling. Oh, I felt whole. Wait a minute. You feel whole because you had some mac. This sounds funny and facetious, but this is how you sit. I want to make it easy. This is how you sit in it. I'm gonna sit in it, this feeling without the macadamia nuts. I'm gonna sit in this feeling with the macadamia nuts because what I'm gauging is a relationship for these things. And then I can put in like, well, how much does it mean to me? Well, if it means not meeting my goal, meaning that it's not productive or constructive, Then I need to figure something else out. So what do? Here's something crazy. Butter. Instead of having macadamia nuts, you switch it with butter. You can replace it with butter. And butter is very satiating and really I don't really like eating it. So it's like then you kind of just give it up, right? So it's like as we go through this lesson, let's pick out 1 to 3 things. They don't have to be something that's going to be crazy. It's just going to give you the steps of I'm going to take these 3 to 4 things and I'm going to replace this habit intentionally, or I'm going to reaffirm this habit because it is actually working towards me. Because there's a lot of things that we do that are making sense. We probably need to do them more, and since we're in the habit of doing it, it's probably easy. You're probably happier about it because you developed a positive relationship with it. And if it's very constructive, why not do it more? What kind of things do we have habits for that we probably should do more, right? That'll be more productive and constructive for us.
Mm. I love it, man. I love it.
Time
I
well
don't know
spent.
if you want to bring that to an end or if we want to step on in a little bit further.
I
'Cause,
think I think I think this is good enough. I think this gives them enough time for them to figure out whatever habits they are and start moving towards these things intentionally. And this is that 1% better that they hear about all the time. 1% better by the end of the year, you'll be whatever. How about let's do that? You know what I mean? So I think this is time well spent. I think I don't want to push it. We've been we've
sounds
been
good.
granted this time. I don't want to hear the alarms going off
Sounds good.
for being overzealous, man. So I definitely appreciate it. What are your last word? Any last words, bro?
You know, just stick with that 1%. I guess I'll speak to that just for a moment. Just the 1% is huge. I actually had a comment back on when you were talking about your father. I thought that was a great example. Just that whole piece on your dad, and it's just the fact that 1% goes both ways. That's all. 1% goes both ways. Either you're getting 1% better at something, or you're getting 1%, uh, or you're doing something 1% negative, or I don't know, I'm looking for the opposite word of better. Um, well, you're declining 1%, right? And that happens with all of us because we form bad habits and we allow those habits to just accumulate. Before you know it, we're at the lower end of the spectrum in shame because of, we've allowed for these things to happen. So, take agency over yourself. um, I thought that was interesting about your dad. I've definitely been there before, where I've had to think about what was going on. Then you mentioned that conversation took you all the way back to like high school when you're thinking about the yo mama jokes, and how we all were like. I remember getting into a fight and telling my mom that that's what my mom said. Do they know me? And I'm
Mm.
like, no. Like, it's too late now. You done messed up. You've been suspended from school. So but I just want you to understand they don't even know what I look like. So how could any of that be real? It's like I didn't rationalize that at that age. But now, like you said, you're rationalizing it, and you made a reasonable a comeback, and it was thoughtful, and it provoked thought within inside of each and every individual. They had to think about things, and I like that. I like when people have to think about what I'm saying, where I'm going, and they can't just assume that the words that are coming out of my mouth are going to align with them. They have to actually pay attention, and I would prefer that, because I'd rather have somebody paying attention to what I'm saying than just assuming that they know everything that I know and then telling me what they're going to hear. So I love that you did that. I thought those were two great examples, and I think that both of them point to the 1% metrics. Either you're declining by 1% or you're gaining by 1%. And it all depends on what you feel is what you like or dislike. And if you're doing something that you dislike and you keep doing it, you're you're declining. And if you're doing something that you love to do and you feel like this is who you are, then you're gaining. And I think that is the crux of the matter, because small things, small habits create large impacts. And that's my closing words. With your father, the small habit that was triggered created a major impact in his life because the other guy got the job. And maybe he would have got the job. But now maybe they're looking at the other guy because he went off the handle. And in your case, you probably got a little more respect because people were like, you know what? I thought Mike was just a mean mugger, but he's actually kind of smart. Don't mess with him because he'll show you up in the middle of a meeting. It's like, yeah, that's right. Leave me alone. So whatever it is that you're doing, just know that you are doing it. You have the potential, opportunity, capacity to be the number one agency over your own life.
Hmm.
I say do it. Why not? Why leave it up to someone else to screw your life up? If you're gonna screw it up on your own. But don't let somebody else screw it up for you. That just to me, that sounds stupid. But on the other hand, I've been there before and I have allowed peer pressure and, TV and movies and music and everything else to cue me up to doing stupid stuff. I ain't with that no more.
They are doing it. They are doing it. I saw recently on Netflix. I think it was Netflix, but it was a. I didn't see the entire thing. It was like a video of these. It's on Netflix. It's a show on Netflix where these scientists were out in the field and they were talking about how to make things more tasteful, how to make it less filling, because what they want you to spend money. We've become a country and probably almost a world of consumers, but definitely America, we're the biggest consumers. So they've developed ways of how to make it taste so good
Mm,
and less satiating so that you can eat more. Because guess what? Then you'll start to buy more of it. So they're hitting all of these with the salt taste, with the sugar taste, and then it goes from a habit to a craving, right?
yes.
So I'm like, I crave this thing,
An
and then
addiction.
and the craving, it feeds into the habit, because if you go away from most of these things, sugar or so on and so forth, for 3 to 5 days, you have these withdrawals, but you're no longer craving it, but you have this habit of doing it. So it's almost like a secular thing where you're like, okay, I'm done with it. You go away from it for 5 days, or maybe you go on vacation to a different country where they don't allow a bunch of this stuff in the foods, and then you come back, and but now you back in the habit of having this whatever it is, right? So it's like, how do I replace these things once you get away
Ice
from it?
cream Snickers bar.
that, that, and I'm gonna tell you, back in the day, that would have been enough for me to be like, I'm going to Publix. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh man, I'm sorry out there. If I triggered somebody, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. We apologize, but hey, now you know. Now
Now,
you know.
now you know that's your trigger.
And we'll figure out a way of how to replace these things. And tell you what, it doesn't have to be food for food. It could be food for relationship. It
Yes.
could be, it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm used to watching TV and falling asleep at night. It could be TV. It doesn't have to be a book. It could be TV for meditation, for prayer, for some, like, it could be something else that you're replacing it, that's gonna make it more productive and more constructive. But you gotta go through and search yourself and figure out, do I want to be? Because, to the brother's point, people are pointing you in that direction, whether they know of it or not, whether you know of it or not. You're going in a direction. All we're attempting to do at this point in time is to say, okay, we're aware of it. And hey, if you still want to go down that pathway, that's totally up to you. But agency, ownership, accountability, right? That's these are the words. This is top tier stuff. This is high standard stuff. You know what I mean? I say high standards, right? This is and this separates you because most people are just going in the pathway.
Mm,
All right,
fire.
love you
All right,
guys.
y'all. We're looking forward to seeing you again next week. We're going to be talking about
Yeah,
habits once again. So I hope that you all tune in. Remember, check us out, whether you're on Mike's Facebook or in the LinkedIn, or if you check us out on X or on YouTube, whatever. We are in multiple places for you to be able to come in. And we don't want you just consuming. That's our prayer, is that you're not simply consuming. Don't just be consumers, but that you're active participators. So we're definitely grateful for you. We thank you. We thank Enol. Did I say that right, bro?
Eno, Eno,
Enu. Thank
Eno.
you very much for the love. Shout out to you and the many others that jumped in and joined us for this episode. We look forward to seeing you again on the next Community Beacon.
Peace.